What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co-host, Alex Wilson. And today we are recapping New York Giants practice. They were on the field today. They had the day off yesterday, but they're back on today. And we saw some interesting plays from Malik, Nabers, from Russell Wilson. Randomly, Gunnar Olszewski had the drive of his life in practice, and Javon Holland had an interception. That and many more takeaways to come. In today's recap episode, we'll go ahead and go through all of the major developments that we saw at practice. I'll start this off with an injury update. Cam Skattebo is going to be out for a little bit of time. We all know Brian Daboll is very dodgy when it comes to injury questions, so he didn't give much of an update, but he did clarify it is a hamstring injury for Cam Skattebo, and he is going to miss some time. The Giants signed a running back, Jonathan Ward, today after a tryout. He'll be a fill-in running back for practice. I think he has a total of 130 scrimmage yards in his career and 1 touchdown across several seasons. So not a guy you expect to make the roster, but he should be able to fill in during practice in the meantime. But that's the injury update there on Skattebo. I know you guys love Skattebo. I know you guys have missed hearing me do my Scatterboom, so figured I would sneak one in there for you as I give an injury update. But Alex, let's go ahead, waste no more time, dive into the takeaways. How are you doing today, my friend? And what did you see from yesterday's or from today's practice that maybe has you a little bit excited about the Giants?
I'm doing pretty good, man. And listen, just general decent quarterback play has me excited about the Giants. It's been a minute, and I do think that the receivers are starting to benefit. Every single pass that goes in the direction of Malik Nabers, Anthony, it's a reception. This guy catches everything, and it's a lot easier for him to catch everything, guys, when the ball is in the right spot. So we love to see Russell Wilson and Nabers generating this early chemistry in training camp against better opponents, to be fair. I mean, Paulson Adebo has been up against Nabers a lot, and he's pretty much picked on him all training camp long. And, even Banks, he's had a couple of plays, and we'll talk about Banks, I'm sure, at some point, but have been impressed with his development and confidence recently as well. But so far, you mentioned the injuries to Skattebo, like that sucks, but he came into the draft with a couple injuries. He was nursing from, college football. And I do think that it's probably going to linger for a little bit longer. I think they probably just shut him down for a couple of weeks. And when he comes back, he comes back. I have plenty of faith in Tyrone Tracy. And obviously you have Devin Singletary for that reason as well. Hamstring injuries are a bit finicky, so have to be extra careful with those. So I think they'll give him plenty of time to recover, and hopefully he'll be back in a month. But with that being said, this is a team that is generating a lot more excitement, a lot more positivity. Not as ugly, the practices. I remember last year, like every single practice, like that was an ugly practice. Like that was full of mistakes. Like that was a bad practice. At least nowadays, like generally the thought process is this team looks a lot more disciplined. They look a lot better. They have more talent. I mean, I wrote an article this morning on Tyler Nubin. He's been balling out. I know Art Stapleton reported he could be a captain. So, before I kind of talk about every single subject I'm sure we have on the docket here, I'll pass it back to you, Anthony, because you know me and on my tangents, and I'll cover everything before we even get to the first topic.
Yes, that you will. You and your fantastic tangents. But you mentioned something there, sloppy practices from the past. You're definitely right. The quarterback play is improved, and it's much more consistent right now. However, today's practice, a lot of the big plays that were made, a lot of the throws downfield and the receptions, the yardage gained was with an asterisk. And what I mean by that is there were many moments where in a real game situation, that would have been a sack. But because it's practice, you don't hit the quarterback and you don't blow the whistle dead. You let everybody play on. But there were a lot of quote unquote would-be sacks today at practice. Brian Burns got in the backfield several times, and Russell Wilson was under a lot of pressure. So the takeaway is the Giants pass rush. It's legit. It's insane. We all know that. But I kind of want to spin this into a multi-day discussion, Alex. The Giants weren't wearing pads today, but we saw on Friday when they were wearing pads, the offensive line has had its fair share of struggles. Is it better than it was last year? Probably by the looks of it. But is it where we want it to be? Probably not by the looks of it currently. I know that James Hudson's had some good moments at practice. Marcus Bowe has taken a lot of reps at left tackle, and he's looked pretty good while competing at the left tackle spot. But regardless, the Giants are still missing the presence of Andrew Thomas on that offensive line. And I am starting to grow a little bit concerned because as great as this pass rush is, they might be winning a little bit too much for my comfort level here with the Giants offensive line. So I want to get your take on that, Alex. There's been a lot of pressure. Again, a lot of would-be sacks today. Are you starting to grow at least some level of concern here with the offensive line maybe not reaching our expectations this season?
I mean, listen, I don't want to be negative, and I try really not to be ahead of the season until we really see what's going on. But the Giants did not do much to their offensive line this offseason. I think that's blatantly obvious, right? They have Andrew Thomas, who I would label injury prone at this point in his career, not even practicing fully. So he's not even on the field, like doing, we saw him running around doing some very light stuff the other day on Friday and Thursday as well. So he's still not gaining chemistry with his new quarterback. And every quarterback has a different drop back. Every quarterback has different tendencies. He has zero chemistry with Russell Wilson. That is a bit concerning. I think they'll pick it up pretty fast because Thomas can live on an island and win. But he also hasn't played in a year. Like, he has not played meaningful football in almost a year now. So, that is quite concerning. Then you have left guard John Runyon, who's, an average solid guard. That's fine. That's more than what I could ask for in recent seasons. John Michael Schmitz is a massive question mark. I've seen him get absolutely bullied on some plays. I've seen him get to the second level and do some good stuff in other plays. So also a big, what if, not established whatsoever. Greg Van Roten returns to practice, immediately gets back with the first team. Evan Neal with pads on apparently was not very good. So, I do think he had some successes in run blocking, but as a pass protector, still has a long way to go. Especially when it comes to stunts and certain, kind of managing those things. He's just a big body at this point in time. He's still trying to learn a new position for the most part at the NFL level. So I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, but I still need to see a lot more. Greg Van Roten is, let's say, an average level player. And then Jermaine Illuminor is probably our most safe player at this point in time, who we can count on to be there every single week and play at a pretty solid level. So you ask me, what do I think about the offensive line? A humongous what if. And that's, I'm not even being negative. That's just reality. They're a huge what if. The scheme will protect them. Having a better quarterback will protect them to a degree. Having a better receiving room with, Nabers obviously healthy and doing his thing. And, hopefully the ability to throw the ball deep and throw with anticipation should help the offensive line quite considerably from a couple different standpoints. But yeah, they're an injury away from things getting really, really bad again. James Hudson's not a great player. He never was. He's just a depth piece. Stone Forsythe is a depth piece. Aaron Stinney is a depth piece. We have a lot of depth pieces, but not a lot of true and tried starting caliber talent. So I'd say right now I am cautiously concerned about the offensive line because they don't have enough starting talent to be great. In my opinion, they have enough to be competent, but one injury and they're really back to square one. So, I imagine you're probably feeling something similar.
Yeah, of course I'm feeling similar. I mean, listen, we had some praise for Evan Neal last week. He definitely had some solid moments of practice, but I said this on the channel. Thursday, we felt really positive about him without the pads on. Friday, Alex, you and I were both there, and we were like, man, Evan Neal was on the floor every other rep, right? So when the pads came on, the physicality ramped up, our level of impression with Evan Neal lowered. So I do have a great amount of concern for this offensive line because there are times without the pads that they look really good. There are times with the pads that they have their bright moments. But even today, without the pads, they struggled, and they have done that quite a bit. And this shouldn't be breaking news for anybody. We know that the Giants' offensive line is not the best unit in the league on paper, and we know that their defensive line arguably is. So it shouldn't be a complete shock that the defensive line is winning more than the offensive line. But just generally speaking, it really is a couple of injuries away from complete disaster. There isn't a lot of top-end talent on this offensive line, and so I just kind of wanted to throw it out there. Not the best practice for them today, and I do have some level of concern that things could get a little bit worse if we don't see some of these younger guys like an Evan Neal start to develop, or if we don't see an Andrew Thomas get healthier as the season slowly creeps up on us. I know it's crazy to say, but week 1 is only a month away. Month from tomorrow. So we've really got to see Andrew Thomas get on the field sooner rather than later. But let's go ahead and jump into the next takeaway from today, Alex, and that's going to be Montrell Washington and his chemistry with Jackson Dart. It is palpable. Those two have a serious connection. They have been developing that practice in and practice out. I feel like in every single one of these takeaway episodes that I'm doing, Alex, I am mentioning Montrell Washington because he just keeps making plays. Today, he had maybe the catch of training camp so far. He was running a crossing route to the left sideline. He had a defender all over him. Jackson Dart fired it in there a little bit high where only his receiver could get it. He used one hand, made the grab while being contacted, falling to the ground, It was an incredible play. And it's not the only incredible play that we've seen from Montrell Washington. We've seen a lot of those moments throughout training camp, and they're all passes being delivered by Jackson Dart. So I've said this before on the channel. The fact that those two have a chemistry is probably going to buy Montrell Washington more time with the team during training camp. And with more time is more opportunities to make some plays and hopefully fight for a roster spot. I honestly feel like there's a good chance he could wind up with a roster spot because of that chemistry with Dart and because he's been working hard and making plays every single practice. But to be honest, the true path to making this roster for Montrell Washington will be through special teams. He's going to need to prove it in that regard in order to get a spot over some of these other guys that are also competing at wide receiver. But Alex, I do want to get your impression on Montrell Washington. Are you excited about him? What are your thoughts on that sick one-handed grab? And how are you feeling about the way that he's performed, not just in today's practice, but generally speaking throughout the last 9 practices that the Giants have had?
Yeah, I mean, listen, Montrell Washington has had a really, really solid stretch of training camp days. Now, there are really 2 reasons why he could make this team. And it's not just because he makes like spectacular catches in training camp, which obviously is awesome. He has not done it in NFL action in 3 years. So like there is a lack of real production, but there's 2 things that stand out to me, right? The first thing is, can he make an impact on special teams? Can he be a good returner? Can he be a good punt gunner? There's different ways for you to make an impact. The second one is that chemistry with Jackson Dart, I do think is important and I do think is valuable. I think those are really the reasons he would be able to make this team. Got to provide some special teams value and got to be able to help this team if, an emergency situation comes up. And, what if Dart gets on the field and he's like, I want Washington in there. We have good chemistry. I like the way that he runs the routes. Our timing is really solid. He's been working with him on behind the scenes as the first team has been getting all these reps. So, that could be a reason for him to stick around. I mean, let's be honest. If he lands on the practice squad, there's probably not many teams that are going to come a calling for Montrell Washington. So, like, it's very possible he lands on the squad and like just lives there until the Giants need him. I wouldn't sell that as sell that idea short. Probably the most likely scenario, for being honest. But I do think that he's had a really nice standout practice. There's been a couple guys like the Giants' depth is having a good training camp so far, and usually that's not the case. Usually the Giants' depth is nowhere to be found. The starters are struggling. Now the starters, some of them are dominating, right? Like Nabers is dominating. Illuminor has been solid. Like, Theo Johnson's been great. Tyler Nubin's been fantastic. Javon Holland had a pick 6 today. Like, Drew Phillips has been locked down. Like, they have guys. Abdul Carter's been unblockable. Like, there are guys on this team that are destroying training camp on both sides, which is great. That has not been the case for a long time. And aside from a couple of individuals like Dexter Lawrence, and the depth is also stepping up and looking good. So you're seeing the foundation, the blossoming of a foundation here that we have not seen in years. And that I can buy it. I can buy into that, Anthony. I can buy into the idea that this team it feels like they're starting off this season with a breath of fresh air because they turned the quarterback room over. They're a little bit more inspired. They have better leadership. Tyler Nubin's a leader. Javon Holland is a leader. Paulson Adebo's a leader. Dexter Lawrence, he leads by example. I think there's a lot of pieces to like on this team right now. There's a lot of talent. It's just a matter of staying healthy and beating some good opponents. You'd be surprised what beating a couple of good teams can do for a morale of a ball club. So they got to go out there and they got to win some big games, beat some NFC East rivals. And I bet you we're going to see some nice progress from this team this year, but they got to take the first step forward and there's got to be some upsets. You know what I mean? Like they got to regain their confidence.
I can't sit through another season where we don't beat the Cowboys or the Eagles at least once apiece. We got to split with those 2 teams. It's enough now. I mean, it's been so long. Dak Prescott beats the Giants every single time. And listen, I think I'm higher on Dak Prescott than most, but he is not this world beater quarterback that should be dominating a team year in and year out. We got to get a win over Dallas. We got to get a win over Philadelphia, hopefully on the road in both of those games, and hopefully we sweep them. But I'll digress off that and now dive back into the takeaways. Javon Holland had a pick today. He's been a ball hawk. He's had several pass breakups and interceptions throughout training camp. So has Tyler Nubin, who you mentioned at the start of the show, Alex. So I'll let you just take it over here. I know you're really excited about the safety duo. I know you're really excited about Tyler Nubin in particular. Tell me what your expectations are for him and what you've seen that's really made Nubin and Holland and all these young guys in the secondary stand out throughout training camp.
You said young guys, and I think it's actually important to say because like Javon Holland's 25, and so is Paulson Adebo. Like, these are young guys. Tyler Nubin's what, 22, 23? These are young individuals. These guys in the middle of their prime, if not even at their prime yet. So I think young guys is a good way to describe them. And Nubin, when we drafted him in the second round, this was a captain at Minnesota. This was one of their best defensive players. He was a leader in that locker room. He was a leader on the field. He did everything by the book. And the Giants wanted to get some high character individuals into this locker room, into this situation, and they found one in Nubin. He already could be a captain this year, and I think what we've seen from him in terms of just what he's done on the field, 2 interceptions on Friday. He's been everywhere, and they're going to get pretty interesting, I think, with their coverages. They'll hide some coverages. They'll use Nubin deeper in the defensive backfield, but I also think that where he's going to thrive is that strong safety, and I think that that's where his role is destined to be. He is a really good run stopper at the safety position. He is, solid athletically. I think that he's better in that role. He's not like this insanely fast, lean, like sideline to sideline free safety. That's Javon Holland. If we saw him up close the other day, Anthony was running towards us. He is lean, but he is built like a free safety, the quintessential frame of a free safety. Tyler Nubin's got a little bit more meat to him, and I think that that's kind of where you're going to see him make more of an impact in the box. It's crazy statement there. But, I do think that, for the most part, when you see Nubin and you see the way that he plays the run, it looks instinctual, you could say, just his ability to identify, a play, fill the gaps, and tackle, really efficient tackler. This is the role that I see him filling in. He's going to be a much better Jason Pinnock. He's going to be just a better player in general, but his coverage abilities are underrated. I think that he is going to grow in that way. He's going to be fine against tight ends. He can help against running backs. He can do all the little things for you. He's just a gritty, dirty player. Like that's the kind of guy you need, guys that just clean up plays. Tyler Nubin is one of those guys. Kind of reminds me a little bit of like Landon Collins when he was, a really nice run stopper for this Giants team years ago. Tyler Nubin plays a similar way, very aggressive, physical, not as like strong, I would say, more finesse based, but I like the way he plays mentally. And he's obviously a very good football player in terms of IQ and leadership.
Yeah, he definitely is those things. A very high IQ football player, and I feel like the Giants have a few of those now in the secondary. Again, it's young, as we just discussed. Nubin's young, and we didn't really talk a lot just there about Drew Phillips, but he's another high IQ football player who's entering his second season. And honestly, the only time I see Drew Phillips get beat in these training camp reps is when he's guarding Malik Nabers. And that'll probably be the next takeaway is, oh my God, Malik Nabers is so dominant. But Drew Phillips has also really held his own against all of the Giants receivers playing in the slot. And honestly, in terms of who's sticking in coverage the most, I would say Phillips has demonstrated the best man coverage of any of these guys on the team thus far throughout training camp. I've been so impressed with him. He's gotten his hand on a number of footballs. So has Nubin. All of these guys are really making plays on the balls. Their ball skills have really improved this year. The Giants in their secondary have some guys who know how to locate the football. Drew Phillips said that his LASIK eye surgery allows him to actually see the football this year. I think that's so incredible that he was as good as he was last year while playing blind. But now that he can actually see where he is on the football field, he should be an even better football player. So I'm very excited. All of the young defensive backs that the Giants have added to this room really give me hope for the future. And even Deonte Banks has made some, I would say, improvements in his game. He's still not perfect. He definitely needs to get his head around a little bit faster, but I do see some reps, Alex, where he is getting turned around and he is making some plays on the ball, definitely seeing signs of improvement, and really looking forward to next weekend during the preseason. We get our first matchup where we see Deonte Banks and all of these defensive backs go up against some other competition. And I think that's going to be a major test for all of them. Now that we're 2 weeks down through the training camp practices, we're in the first week of practice leading up to a preseason game. I think that we're on the horizon from learning a lot about this team. Like this upcoming weekend, we should get a lot of answers about Evan Neal. Has he really transitioned well to guard? I think we're going to find out once he competes in this preseason game. How about Drew Phillips? Does he look as elite on the preseason field as he does on the training camp field? And of course, Tyler Nubin, all of these guys, any questions that you have should really start to get answered during the preseason more than during these team drills at practice. So I'm looking forward to that. And I guess preliminary, it's early, but Alex, with the idea in mind that this is the last week of practices leading into the preseason, who are you keeping an eye on as we get to the preseason? And in that first preseason game, who do you hope to see stand out?
Man, guys that I think, preseason is important for a lot of guys that obviously fringe roster, but of course, I can say the easy one in Jackson Dart, but I think everyone's excited to see him. I would have loved to see Cam Scottaboo, but I don't know if he's going to be ready, obviously, with the new hamstring setback. So, a guy that I really am interested to see is Theo Johnson. I really want to see his role and how his role develops. I would say, of course, Banks and Cordell Flott, that's a really interesting position battle that is going to be critical. The underrated one is actually DT2. Darius Alexander, Raheem Nunez-Roche, Roy Robertson-Harris. That's a really interesting one too. Alexander's actually been lagging behind. I think Roy Robertson-Harris has been getting the majority of those starting reps alongside Lawrence. So there's a lot of bodies and mouths to feed there. So I do think that that's going to be one to keep an eye on. Evan Neal, another one. Obviously, want to see what he's made of in this preseason, like real football setting. JMS, can he hold his own physically against some of these bigger DTs? Like he's not been able to in the first 2 years. So has he gotten stronger? Has, a new quarterback helped him in different ways? There are storylines here that will define the Giants season. The offensive line, right guard, center, and I say tight end, like there's a lot of positions up for grabs right now in terms of playing time, but also just impact. If Theo Johnson can shine, I do think this offense is going to change quite dramatically because having a really good tight end changes everything for you. You see how teams run through their tight ends with like Travis Kelce and George Kittle. You see how much of an impact they can make in a game. If Theo Johnson can take some big developmental steps forward, not saying he's going to be any of those guys, but if he can just be a good, solid just piece that can play his part and do it well, the Giants offense will be able to expand in many different ways and get a little bit more versatile on how they deploy their weapons. So, that is one spot that I think will be a pretty big deciding factor on if the offense is competent or incompetent this upcoming season.
100%. Totally agreed. What I'm keeping an eye on during this upcoming preseason, that wide receiver battle, man. I think there's a lot of guys competing. We talked about Montrell Washington, but we've talked in the past about Bo Collins and how he's turned heads. Zach Pascal is a veteran in that room who's competing. Dalen Cambry is another UDFA rookie who's made some nice plays. And Jordan Bly and Antoine Wells Jr., all those wide receivers, I'm really excited to see them. And obviously, it's going to be probably Tommy DeVito throwing them the ball for the most part. I think the Giants are going to give a good amount of reps to Jackson Dart. I'm sure Jameis Winston will play some. And then Tommy DeVito probably plays a lot this preseason before inevitably being released, I would assume. But it should be interesting nonetheless to see how all of those young wide receivers develop as they compete for that roster spot. That there's pretty much just like one or two spots up for grabs there, and there's like five guys competing for it. So that's going to be a fun one to pay attention to in the preseason. But other than that, Alex, any major takeaways from today's practice? It seemed like a pretty routine practice, not a lot going on. But anything else that caught your eye?
Not much. I saw some really nice passes from Russell Wilson. Jalen Hyatt had a couple of nice catches today. The back shoulder, I did see that one. So I do think that like Hyatt, there is a role for him on this team. I don't know why the Giants don't throw more back shoulder passes. Well, I do know why, but Russell Wilson is capable of throwing them. Let's put it at that. I think they should be using more of those, especially if they're going to be stretching the field. They have speed on the outside. They're going to be in some situations in man coverage where they can leverage it. So I would like the Giants to be a little bit more proactive with the back shoulder throws. I saw Dart had a really nice throw on the run today, which was encouraging. I like the way like that off script game is like kind of. If you don't have an elite running game like the Eagles did with Saquon, like you need to be able to be creative on offense, and your quarterback being able to make things out of nothing is critical. So I do think like this team will have a good running game. Don't get me wrong, but I do think eventually when Dart does take over, that like off script capability is going to be such an important part of this offense and like really the offense that Brian Dable runs because Josh Allen was so good at it. Like you need to have a guy that can make those type of plays. I think Dart has the capacity, just needs more reps, experience, just keep it going, keep churning, keep learning, buddy. Like there's no rush. The only goal for Jackson Dart right now is to just develop chemistry with his teammates and adapt to the speed of the NFL, which it'll be really fun to see him in preseason ball just to get a taste of what that looks like.
I cannot wait to get a taste of that. But yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun watching these quarterbacks. Malik Nabers, though, also I'll end it here. He made a couple of spectacular grabs today. One of them was a leaping catch over on the left sideline. The other one, hell of a release off the line of scrimmage from the slot. Got past Drew Phillips. Drew Phillips honestly stuck with him in coverage for the most part, but Nabers just separated. He's too fast. He is speed, and he is deadly. I cannot wait to watch Malik Nabers this season. He just looks like he's going to go for the Triple Crown. I keep saying that over and over, but I'm so serious. I am betting a lot of money on Malik Nabers overs this season. It's going to be a fun one. And I just am very thrilled about his progress and development throughout camp. But I think that's pretty much going to wrap this one up. Make sure you leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, ring the bell so don't miss an episode. Comment your thoughts down below in the comments section. If you listen on Apple or Spotify, make sure to leave us a 5-star review and go ahead and follow us on all of our social media channels at Fireside Giants. But without further ado, we'll catch you on the next one. Have a good one, and let's go New York Giants.